Hello, welcome back to Mark It Down Podcast, Fast Forward Impact Review or Recap. We're still deciding. I don't know. I'm James Gisanti, and I still don't know how to
Hang
fast
on.
forward.
Low. Hi there, and welcome to another edition of Impact Fast Forwards from the Markdown Podcast. Clearly, I'm not James. I'm taking over this week. One, because James wasn't here, and two, because I felt like it. I do a lot of work around here. I might as well get a little bit of publicity with my face on the screen outside of the regular pods. Anyway, I had to review Impact. And for those of you who watch the show, I don't really watch Impact. Not that I have anything against it. Don't necessarily love the presentation, but it's just not anything I've ever really had the desire nor the time to watch. But with James not around today, I decided to crack open a beer and watch some Impact. So let's get started. We started with the walking weapon, Josh Alexander, coming down and cut a promo. For those of you who haven't been paying attention, the Impact pay-per-view No Surrender is coming up in a couple of weeks, and he is going to be on Team Impact. They will be facing Honor No More, the miscreants from Ring of Honor who have been running roughshod over Impact over the last few weeks. He seemed pretty pissed that he hasn't gotten an Impact title match in a while, that obstacles have been being put in his way for a long time. Seemed to be the general gist of what he was trying to get through. I didn't understand all of it, not being a huge Impact guy, but man got his point across. He was eventually interrupted by Big Con. Big Con, it was Connor from the Ascension. And there was very quickly an impromptu match in which Big Con was defeated via ankle lock in about under a minute, after which Alexander would not release the ankle lock. Security comes down. He starts getting into his security, and then Scott D'Amore comes out, and he ends up getting put on his ass by Alexander. Now, D'Amore begins to talk to Alexander. Alexander obviously wanting the winner of W. Morrissey against Moose, who we'll talk about in a bit, after No Surrender. And D'Amore, yes. I took extensive notes for this, by the way, since I don't know shit. So if I keep looking this way, I apologize. But he begins to talk to Alexander in what felt like a way too long promo for me. This whole thing, I started watching at 8:30. It wasn't over till at least 8:50, almost 8:55. It was long. And as somebody who doesn't necessarily watch Impact, I didn't really understand all of it. The more I was trying to talk about how him and Alexander go way back and all their history, and I was just like, get to the fucking point. The point being, Alexander is off of Team Impact at the moment at No Surrender, and he is currently, quote, going home until further notice, which I assume just means he's suspended, which now means Team Impact is down a guy. So D'Amore was in the back talking to the rest of the Team Impact guys. He decided that they should be the ones to choose who the next person on the team would be. Somebody named, this is how much I pay attention, Macklin wanted to be on the team, but D'Amore said the team would choose, and they were like, Jonathan Gresham, who is the current Ring of Honor champion, seems like the guy we want. He has just as much of a problem with Honor No More as we do. So they decided they would talk to him later in the night. After this, we have Deonna Purrazzo open challenge for either one of her titles. She is both Ring of Honor's Women's Champion and whatever the name of the AAA Women's Championship is. I know it's not that. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. I'm sorry. Something in Espanol. Yo no sé. Pero she has an open challenge for one of her two titles. It is answered by Santana Garrett, who I like. I remember her from NXT. I've seen her around the way. She's usually pretty good. She challenges for the Ring of Honor title, and they have themselves what seems to be a fairly solid match. Nothing overly spectacular. And as someone who has only ever seen one Deonna Purrazzo match, which was a few weeks ago when I accidentally stumbled upon Impact on TV, and I was like, oh, Impact's on. I might as well watch the last half hour. I saw her win the Ring of Honor Championship just at random. It was a very, very good match. This was solid until the end. And then the end happened, and it just ended really janky and weird. And there wasn't a replay. I wasn't even entirely sure if that was a legitimate pin, but 1, 2, 3 was counted. Peraza retains, and we move on, and I got another beer. We come back from commercial, and the entire reason I agreed to do this, the Inspiration are back. Oh, how I miss them so much. I'm not entirely sure what the storyline is here, but apparently they bought some guy. What's your name, guy? Oh, Caleb. They bought some guy, Caleb, a phone, and they got him to take some pictures of him, and then his boss came over and was pissed. But for a short 75 seconds, maybe a minute and a half, the Inspiration were back on my screen, and I was thrilled. And I definitely did this out of order because I totally skipped a couple of things, but whatever. The Inspiration is important to me, and I wrote them in all capital letters, so it stood out in my notes. What actually happened after they came back from commercial was we found out that Team Impact actually wanted Gresham. See, totally out of order. And then Chelsea Green faced Mickie James in a non-title match. Obviously, Mickie James being the Impact Women's Champion. And the first thing I wrote was, WWE and AEW should take notes. Back-to-back women's segments, back-to-back women's matches, no less. Which is a big deal. The number one contender, Natasha Steele, and her muscle, Savannah Evans, were on commentary. I was a little surprised they were doing Mickie versus Chelsea, just because these are two people I know. Having them in a non-title, non-pay-per-view match seemed a little odd. Chelsea, I guess, is face in Impact, which, again, struck me as surprising, I think is the word, because I'm kind of used to seeing her in GCW, where I'm pretty sure she's heel. So it was interesting. But obviously, I should have expected this, but the match ended in a DQ after Chelsea Green hit Steele's move, which was more or less a cutter. It was basically an RKO. And Steele and Evans came over. Steele threw a trash can in there, and not even like a metal one, just like a plastic bathroom trash can into the ring. And then they attacked Chelsea Green, and the match ended in DQ, and they left, and that was that. So maybe don't take notes, AEW, because that ending kind of sucked. Anyway, so then the Inspiration had their thing, and then we had Bullet Club faux life. Jay White comes out with GOD and Chris Bay. Chris Bay looks cool. I've never actually seen him. James talks about him a lot. But he's a cool looking dude, and he had a really nice Bullet Club shirt. I might have to get my hands on that one. All gold. Real nice. It's a weird dynamic, though, for somebody who doesn't watch Impact, where Bullet Club is face. And that's weird, because even when guys like Kenny and the Bucks and Cody, when he was there, and Adam Cole, baby, like when those guys were in Bullet Club, they were cheered, but they were still heel. They were still doing heel things. They were still cutting heel promos. This was a face promo from Jay White and GOD, 100%. So it was really odd seeing these guys who I only know as heels cut face promos. So Jay was talking up his match against Eric Young at No Surrender. Eric Young with Violent by Design came out, interrupted him. The Good Brothers eventually showed up. They were Violent by Design challenged Bullet Club to a 6-man tag next week. Jay White said, let's do it now. Good Brothers were like, no. We need our thank you for giving you guys everything you have, being the prior Bullet Club generation. And Tama Tonga comes on the microphone. And goddamn, that man is good. Oh, he dropped a line and goes, and I'm going to read it verbatim here. He goes, you've been everywhere because you've been fired from everywhere. And if that ain't a shot directly through the skull of the Good Brothers. So that tag match will now be next week after the Good Brothers, are dug up from their graves that Tama Tonga put them in. And after that, we then found Jonathan Gresham beaten up backstage very randomly. I wonder who could have done it. And then I went and got myself another beer. you haven't noticed, beer makes wrestling better. If you're not into that, that's cool. But for me, love having a few beers while watching some wrestling. So then we had Matt Cardona backstage segment interview, as it were, wearing a Jordan Grace shirt, which I thought was just pure smarmy bullshit. And he took credit after winning the Digital Media World Championship last week for not only creating that title, but creating and birthing every vlogging wrestler that there is today, the entire generation of these people, for creating BTE, which he mentioned by name, and a bunch of other stuff. So he's again going to face Jordan Grace at No Surrender, I believe, and he told her to bring her best. James last week was contemplating whether or not they were going to bring heel Matt Cardona to Impact. I would say so. This seemed very much like a heel promo to me. So it's looking like we're getting heel Cardona in Impact, which should be interesting because, again, Chelsea at the moment is a face, at least as far as I can tell. So we'll see if they end up teaming together, they stay apart, if she goes heel. But that's a discussion for a future episode. After that, we get Honor No More's Matt Taven and Mike Bennett. Hi, Maria. Versus Rich Swann and Rhino from Team Impact. They were both escorted by members from their respective teams, and both of those teams were eventually thrown out by the ref. Do love me a good ref toss. Always a good time. Eventually, towards the end of the match, Maria Kanellis was at ringside. Excuse me, Maria Kanellis Bennett. She was at the commentary table. She gets up, distracts Rhino as he was setting up for the gore, throws what looked like powder into his eyes, and he was hit by a finisher from Matt Taven and pinned 1 through 3. Not clean, but you know what I mean. Anyway, so after that, Bennett and Taven began to jump Rich Swann until, oh my God, Macklin, there we go. Macklin from earlier comes down to defend not only them, but the Ring of Honor owner who had been sitting ringside for both that match and apparently matches before. And if you watch Impact, you know who I'm talking about. Anyway, so he comes down, defends them from the two of them. Bennett gets just absolutely split in half with a gore by Rhino. Still got it, man. Even if he's not that great in the ring, he can still hit that thing like a motherfucker. So after that, there's a backstage promo there where the other members of Team Impact are in the back waiting at, right near the tunnel. Both Swann and Rhino come in as Macklin is pitching his case to them. And one of them agrees that Macklin should join Team Impact despite his apparently checkered past. Rhino fist bumps him, and it appears he's now on Team Impact in place of Alexander. After this, we get to our main event, Brian Meyers versus W. Morrissey in a no DQ match. This was cool for me. I haven't seen W. Morrissey, aka formerly known as Big Cass, since his departure from WWE. It was mentioned multiple times that he is 7 feet tall, and you indeed can't teach that. But it was very interesting to see what his new character was, how he's wrestling now, and just see him in general. I know James has been saying a lot that he looks very good, and I'm not one to disagree. I thought he looked pretty good in this no DQ match. It started off with Myers and his learning tree trying to 3-on-1 assault Morrissey. Morrissey was able to overcome it and put both of Myers' pupils through tables. Then we hit commercial, and I got my last beer of the show. Always gotta get one more in before the show ends. We come back. Myers has the upper hand. Eventually, Myers is able to duct tape Morrissey's left arm to the rope in the corner and just assault the shit out of him. Now, this was cool. I always love these spots with duct tapes or handcuffs or whatever, especially with a bigger guy like Morrissey, because it makes a lot of sense for the heel to do something like this. But it did lead to Morrissey taking a lot of weirdly angled like hits from kendo sticks and just whatever, the trash can, I believe, for a couple of times. You could see there was a huge welt on Morrissey's tricep, left tricep. It was just, I don't know if he was just turning the wrong way, or perhaps he should have turned more into the side he escaped to rather than the side he wasn't. But it looked uncomfortable, which I guess is partially the plan. But just, not that it was bad, it was just odd. Anyway, that all culminated with Meyers hitting a coast-to-coast into the trash can into Morrissey, who then was cut free by Meyers, kicked out. Eventually, you have the big comeback. Morrissey power bombs Meyers, then goes underneath the ring, grabs some thumbtacks. That's the word I'm looking for. Grabs some thumbtacks, pours him out, power bombs him not once, but twice at the behest of the crowd onto the thumbtacks, pins him 1, 2, 3, and picks up the W. I will say Morrissey's power bombs, not the best I've seen. I think it's just more of a height thing. Maybe there's got to be something to do with that, where because Morrissey's so tall, it's probably hard for him to get somebody up that high. I mean, he is 7 feet tall. So compared to somebody like Wardlow, where he's stockier, and it's probably better for, it probably is easier for him to make it look better than Morrissey. I digress. The third one was very good. So that's neither here nor there. After that, Moose comes out, Moose being the Impact champion, who will be facing Morrissey at No Surrender. Morrissey, from what I could ascertain from the previously on at the beginning of the show, from what I saw of it, the YouTube was a little janky at the beginning, but that is not Impact's fault. That was just the streaming to my TV's fault. It appeared Morrissey jumped him in his hotel room last week. So Moose coming out, returning the favor, attacked Morrissey, and then put a chair around his neck at a very different angle than you would probably see in WWE. Morrissey smartly had his arm in there for protection, obviously. And he was up against the post and the ring apron, standing on the floor. And Moose was hitting a chair into the other chair on the legs. So it was just something I'd never seen before, and it just didn't look devastating, but it was probably very safe, and just chair to the neck in general is just bad. So it wasn't necessarily a bad thing. It was just something I had never seen before, and I just didn't personally like it very much. Anyway, that's pretty much the episode. I gotta say, like, this being probably the first full episode of Impact I've ever watched, I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either. Maybe I'll go back to it next week. I'm not sure. If I have nothing else to do and I remember, yeah, I might jump on. Also, James pays the $1 a month to let us watch it with no commercials on YouTube. So that's also pretty cool. No commercials is always a nice thing. The presentation for me still a little weird. Just I get used to, the smaller crowd, the smaller arena. But all in all, that was a pretty good episode of Impact. Anyway, I hope I did a decent job filling in for James. I know I can't give you the depth and insight that he does, but I thought I thought I did okay. Anyway, thank you for joining us here on the Impact Fast Forward from Market Down podcast. I'm Nick Cummings. I hope everybody has a good one. Go enjoy a beer on me, and I'll see you next time.